Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. We are back in the East Dulwich Tavern. It really is a very special establishment, so go check it out if you are in South London. Speaking of special, we've got Michael McCubbin and Henry Hill. Hello lads, how are we doing? McCubbs, have you enjoyed the Champions League this week?
Yes, I have. PSG Bayern I thought was decent for a bit yesterday. Spurs, I'm very happy I didn't watch the Spurs Milan game until the final 10 minutes. And as usual, I've forgotten what happened on Tuesday. But Benfica beat Borussia and Dortmund Chelsea. Yeah. To be fair, I must admit, I have really enjoyed I've really enjoyed the first few months of Graham Potter at Chelsea. Thought it was very entertaining to see them do so badly. Although I do like Graham Potter, but I'm quite happy for him that he seems to have turned things around a little bit at least. I just think Chelsea were very good defensively. I'm still not particularly impressed by them as a team, but I think defensively they look very good. And so I'm happy that, one of England's best managers of recent years seems to be turning things around a little bit. However, quite sad that Dortmund didn't make it through, because I think they've deserved a Champions League quarter final this season. Bit unlucky that they didn't. The Brandt getting hooked after 5 minutes. No Kobel, no Makoko. It wasn't to be on the night. Unfortunately, the fact that Ben Chilwell was the most advanced of all those players encroaching into the box, all those kind of things. Things just didn't go quite their way. But otherwise, it's been good. I'm kind of hoping that next week will be better though. I feel like so far the second legs haven't quite had the spiciness. I want an extra time. We haven't had extra time yet, so
we want a final 15 minutes of madness. There's always a few crazy last 16 ties. I tend to agree with you. I did enjoy them though. I was disappointed likewise that Dortmund didn't go through. We went quite hard on that, I think, in our predictions. Henry, how are you?
Yeah, great. I forgot my microphone today, so just to get the elephant in the room out of the room. No, I'm good. Yeah. Sad to see Scott Parker. Full of a hero. I feel like it's a lot of people are enjoying it in a weird way, him getting fired. I'm as kind of badly as a lot of Fulham fans think about Scott Parker, I still kind of feel, this is a guy's livelihood we're talking about here. He took a chance going out there. Okay, it really didn't work at all. It's gone wrong, but people laying in on this fashion, laying in on what he did with Brugge. They haven't actually got. This is one of the weaker teams that they've put out in a long time, and I do kind of feel sorry for him. So I think we have to remember, as much as it is funny, almost we're so used to people getting fired. These are their jobs. These are everything that they're trying to work towards, but hopefully he'll get another chance in the Championship, because I think that's probably where his standing lies. But I agree with you guys. A bit more excitement in the Champions League would not go amiss.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, well made actually, because that video of, I think he's called Mark Hudson, the Cardiff City coach that got fired. Did you see that? And he was telling his boys afterwards, as in his children, and the way they reacted just sort of brought home that, we sort of go up and down about these managers, say they deserve to be, I don't think we ever say they deserve to be fired, but, talk about the speculation of them being fired. And you kind of forget, as you say, that families have moved places, that children have gone to different schools, they tried to make friends in an area. It's a big life upheaval.
Jesse Marsh relocated his entire family to Yorkshire again. And that's a gander on the assumption that he's going to build something and do something.
It is a special.
I'm not it's a great place, but something just saying. I think we forget the wider context of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. This is actually a good preamble, because guys, today we are talking about the next superstar managers in world football. I think we do this around once a year, and there's actually quite a few good candidates. So we're not talking about the likes of Mikel Arteta that have proved themselves to be a very competent manager, if not maybe a superstar just yet. We're talking about the emerging ones. And McCubbs, we have to kick off with the man of the moment, the fruit of the tree at the moment. Will Still, the tree. That's a new one from me. Will Still of Reims, because this is an incredible story from a guy who is about our age.
Yeah. I think he's in my school year, actually. Pretty mad to think. And he's managing a top 5 league.
You're at Continental.
I am, yeah. I'm about to rip him apart, actually. I'm about to pick holes in him. No, I'm not qualified to do that whatsoever. But fruit of the tree as well, I like that. It's a bit of a Zach Jalabism.
That's still, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Will Still, an amazing story. I feel like he's been covered quite a lot. We've covered him, haven't we, in a short, and there's been a lot of hype around. I think because he's English as well, although actually a ton of his life has been spent in Belgium. A lot of his education was in Belgium. I think he went to college in the UK. Then through that, he ended up coaching Preston North End's under-14s when I think he was like I think he was only 19, 20 around that at the time as well. And I think what's most impressive about Will Still is not just the fact that he's 30 years old. Like, that is mad to be managing in a top 5 league at that age. The most notable manager in recent years you'd say is Nagelsmann, and he's a real anomaly even in Germany. But it's more so how experienced he is in different kind of facets of the game already. He's a relatively experienced video analyst. That's kind of what his background is in. Obviously, football manager, he's been talked about as the football manager, and that is a thing as well. I think the reason why he was so into Football Manager originally is because his parents wouldn't allow a PlayStation in the house. So that was the only, kind of football gaming he could do. But yeah, so he comes from that kind of analytical background, which means I think it will serve him in good stead in the long run, because it means he understands at quite a deep level, different aspects of of a back room, in terms of he can hire a video analyst and know exactly what they're doing down to the fine details. So I think that's really promising for his future. But as for Reims, he took over in October after Oscar Garcia was let go. They were 15th at the time. They're now 8th. He's lost only one of his 19 games in charge. I think they're only 5 or 6 points off Rennes in 5th place now. They've beaten Rennes. They drew against PSG twice, one of which was it his first game in charge. And they outshot them in both those games as well. These aren't flukes. I know PSG had a player sent off in both matches, Verratti and Ramos, two of them are senior players. But yeah, they outshot them in both games. They were far from a fluke. And I think, it's pretty mad that was his first game in Ligue 1. He was saying how scared he was going into the game. He just didn't want to get spanked, essentially. And then kind of actually seeing, what was fairly, just quite a sensible game plan just play out quite well. Must have just given him so much confidence going into that run. But yeah, like I said, was, raised in Belgium. First experience was with, Preston, and then was a video analyst for a couple of clubs in Belgium, was kind of a video analyst / assistant manager for Les, and then they let go of their manager. This was, I think, around 2017 time. So he was only 24, I think, when he got his first ever gig at being a head coach. And I think he won 7 games on the trot straight off the bat and took them from bottom of the league to safety. So it's pretty bad. And that's the other thing. It's not only that he's got this kind of backroom experience. It's the fact that he's already taken. This is his third time being a caretaker boss, so he knows exactly how to do this. And in every single case of him doing that, he's been a success. He's been a bounce. Yeah, there's always been a bounce with him, which just goes to show, as well as being clearly tactically sound, he's clearly a really good man manager as well. And managing players who are older than him, I think that's always a really good sign when you have a young coach who can take over squads. And I know Reims is, relatively young, but, take over squads that, whether there are going to be people around your age who, there's always going to be that, there could be that dynamic where...
We've seen it with Nagelsmann and Neuer and Lewandowski.
To be fair. And that's always going to be, that's always going to be an aspect of it. But he's managed to, tackle that with ease. And his style of play seems to be working really well. I think Reims were a fairly decent pressing side before he took over, but they've just become way more effective at it. I think they now rank 2nd in the league behind Lyon for tackles in the attacking third. I think they rank around 5th or 6th for pass defensive action, which basically measures the intensity of your press. That's more than PSG. So yeah, he's just got them playing really good stuff. And obviously Flo Balogun is, one of the stories of Ligue 1 this season. I know he's not scored in a few weeks now, but 15 goals in the league still, you would not have necessarily expected that when he went there on loan. This guy's a star for the future. I think another thing, when you read interviews from him and stuff, is that I think this. I feel like he's going to have a lot of longevity. I don't think this is going to be. I hope at least that this isn't a manager who suddenly gets snapped up by a Premier League club in the next 2, 3, 4 years. Yeah, I really. Yeah, I mean, that is that is his dream. That is his dream, isn't it? That is his dream. But like, I think when he's been, when people have asked him about that, he's kind of just said, I'd love to one day just like coach in some capacity at West Ham. I don't think it feels like he's
gunning for the manager's job.
Well, yeah, I think in some ways he's quite surprised that he's he's in the position that he's in, he's got 20 years. You know what I mean? He's genuinely, he's got 20 years to get to the top. He doesn't need to rush into things.
We've time he'll be like the age of Mourinho when he took over at Chelsea, I think.
Yeah,
originally.
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. So like, he really does have the world at his feet. But yeah, like I think, I know they're different examples, but I know, Dukes, you were always very kind of critical of Lampard taking such a big job, straight out of being a player, or like after only 2 years of managerial experience. We've seen Gerrard, make that step up to the Premier League and not quite cut it. This is someone who has already got tons of experience coaching. Yeah, he doesn't need to to rush it at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I just always feel like it was kind of a lose-lose for those managers going for those jobs so soon. And look at where Gerrard and Lampard are now. Like, where do they go from here? It's quite difficult. Right, let's move on to a man that Henry was desperate to talk about. He actually suggested this entire topic yesterday and said, we need to talk about Arne Slot. And Euro expert agreed as well. Why do you like this manager so much, Henry?
I've seen in the comments loads people asking us to kind of bring up the fact that Feyenoord are top of the division, been absolutely crushing it this season. And the man behind it is Arne Slot. He's unbelievable. If we remember, we got very excited about AZ Alkmaar when it looked like they were going to win the Eredivisie during the COVID period. That season got curtailed of them second but on goal difference. That was thanks to Arne Slot when he was in charge there. Excellent first season. Then got fired because they kind of thought he wasn't really focused on the job.
He was chanting to fire them, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He was looking elsewhere, and Feyenoord have come in, and he's just been amazing since he's gone there. Over the course of the campaign, brought in Robin van Persie as his assistant. Last season, obviously, they got to the Conference League final. They actually dominated Roma in that game. They really did. So it was a classic Mourinho display to sort of put up that 1-0 victory. So really unfortunate there. Big fan base, big club Feyenoord. Not epic scenes when they won the division a few years ago. Could happen again. And yeah, they came third, and this season they're top with 16 wins, 7 draws and 1 defeat in 24 games this season. That's a remarkable number. They're 3 points ahead of Ajax at the moment. Ajax are on a great run of form though. That's the only concern with 10 games to go. Or was it 18 teams, 36 games? Well, whatever. 12 games to go, whatever it is in the Eredivisie. It's going to be tight with Ajax hounding them down. But yeah, his football, they're saying it's like the next kind of Cruyff. Is how excited that they're getting in the Netherlands in terms of how Maverick...
They've seen a few as well.
Yeah, in terms of how Maverick... He doesn't necessarily believe in positions as such. He likes really fluid formations and fluid players running through. It's like 4-2-3-1 is effectively how they play, but the reality is second they're in possession, the fullbacks bomb up, the centre-backs actually split, and the goalkeeper pushes up. And if you actually look at the goalkeeper's heat map... It's crazy just the amount, how high up this guy's playing and touching the ball in around the sort of centre half line at moment. So he's really part of the whole process. And yeah, he really likes his 2 central midfielders to run around and dominate and get involved everywhere. I think they've got 16 goal scorers in their team this season, 11 of which have got 2 goals at least. They've got the second best attack behind Ajax in terms of actual overall goals, and I think the 3rd best defence. But yeah, they take more shots than everyone else. It's fast, it's direct football, it's really good.
And he nearly went to Leeds.
Yeah, he absolutely nearly went to Leeds.
They tried. I don't know whether he nearly did.
Yeah, well, I mean, they tried for a lot of people, which I'll roll on to in a minute. But yeah, it's in that huge high press, intense counter pressing. They really try and get the ball back as quickly as possible. Justin Bigelow is the name of the keeper. Well worth looking out for. But yeah, the star of the show is Orkan Koçu at centre midfield. 8 goals, 1 assist this season. If you look at his numbers, it's unreal.
I've seen people talk about him for a while.
Second in the Eredivisie for key passes and progressive passes. 3rd for shots. 22-year-old Turkish international. I think he's got a really big future. But yeah, there was concerns that it would take time for people to buy into Feyenoord's system. I think the surprise has been how quickly the players have bought into it and said, you know what, we can do this. Because yeah, he does require like high flexibility and tactical awareness within his players in order to sort of adapt to his methods. But yeah, it's really fun, exciting, vertical football. And as you said, Leeds were interested in him because it kind of reminds Bielsa, which rolls in nicely, I think, to another quick suggestion. Andoni Iraola, which comes from at Paljo_798. This is the Rayo Vallecano boss. Played like 400 league games for Athletic Club at right back. So where he played under Bielsa, actually, at one point. And then I was reading that he played under Vieira in New York City, which is where he learned kind of how to use his midfielders better as a manager. And yeah, he's been amazing since he's been a Rayo Vallecano. Last season, they were threatening Champions League football. Had that kind of drop-off, a dramatic drop-off. But they kind of got a taste of what they could achieve. And they've come back this season and been even more impressive. I think they're 7th at the time of recording, just 2 points behind Villarreal. So yeah, they're maintaining that momentum this season. Once again, 40-3-1, but very flexible. Gets his fullbacks super high. They overload. Fran Garcia's already earned a move back to Real Madrid because they're so impressed with what he's doing. I mean, yeah, vertical football. They take tons of shots from outside the area. I think only Real Madrid do more, but turn over the ball as quick as possible. And again, it's all about the two central midfielders. They got Santi Comesana and Oscar Valentin. They work really well together. Valentin is sort of the crusher, the ball winner. He's everywhere. And then Comesana, he moves forward. And actually, Camelo up front, who's on loan from Atletico, well worth watching. And Oscar Trejo, who's their like playmaker. They all kind of move around and together. So their attack is so in your face and fluid and all over the place. It is kind of like Bielsa.
Yeah.
Glory days. So yeah, I mean, I was reading Leeds comparisons. It's like Jesse Marsh, just with a bit more organisation.
Sure.
And they're willing to be a bit more patient at the back as well and pass it around the defenders. We were getting excited about Dimitrescu being a good, just solid keeper last season. This season he's become more of a sweeper keeper. He's out there, really outside his box. Yeah, it kind of ties in well with Arne Slot in how interesting they are as a team. But yeah, I really like Iraola, only 40 years old. So yeah, still super young too. If he can do this with a Vallecano team that really is built on a shoestring, then imagine what he could do with a better squad. So yeah, I think a really great suggestion, Iraola.
Love it. It's a good call from them both actually not to go to Leeds mid-season. Not because I think Leeds have a bad squad or are definitely going to go down. I just think it's so difficult to go into a squad in mid-season when the games are coming thick and fast. You've got no pre-season. And it's actually quite weird to think about. Most managerial changes mid-season aren't really those clubs' first choice because they often can't get those first choices because their first choices are doing well with other clubs. So you end up with a lot of mediocre managers of around the bottom end of all these top 5 leagues and some really good ones doing very good jobs outside of the limelight like Arne Slot and Iraola as well. Right, let's move on to Xabi Alonso quickly. Probably the coolest guy in football. Everyone wants him to do well, and he's doing well at Leverkusen. I don't think it's been anything unexpected necessarily because I think their squad was really good, to be honest. And I think Seoane, not quite sure what went wrong there at the start of the year. They only got 5 points from 8 matches. They were second bottom at the time. But Xabi Alonso has got them playing the Leverkusen football that we've seen in the last few years. And he did have a very good reputation from his time at Real Sociedad B. And everyone was excited to see how it was gone. And they're doing well. They're in mid-table now. They're probably not going to qualify for Europe, but they've steadied the ship. They're not going to go down either. And he's got some of those really top players that are in that squad, because they do have some really top players, the likes of Jeremy Frimpong, the likes of Moussa Diaby, back to their very best as well. And they've now got the 5th best attack in the division by expected goals, got the 8th best defence, and they're rated as the 4th best side by expected points. So if they'd had this Xabi Alonso impact over the entire season, they'd possibly be pushing for Champions League football, which is probably where they should be on the basis of their player quality. It's just been a little bit unfortunate that Florian Wirtz was injured until recently. He's come back in really good form. Patrick Schick's lost form and had some injury issues as well. And then they dealt with a change of coach as well. So Xabi Alonso, one to watch. Don't think he necessarily goes down as a superstar in the next couple of years because I think he's getting where he's got Leverkusen to where they should be in terms of their performance level. But it has been really impressive nonetheless. So well done to Xabi Alonso. McCubs, let's move on to another Bundesliga coach for you were keen to talk about in Bo Svensson. Yeah. And this comes in from ex-Turtle Toe. What do you like about the Mainz manager?
Yeah, I mean, he just hasn't put a foot wrong so far. Bo Svensson took over in 2021, but his history with Mainz goes back a long, long time. This is a guy who played in Jurgen Klopp's final season at Mainz in 2007-08, and then was there for Thomas Tuchel's entire tenure between 2009 and 2014. Centre-back, very reliable. But actually, actually the first legendary manager he played on. Maybe not the first, actually, but before those two, played under Roy Hodgson at Copenhagen in the 2001.
Roy, I knew he'd
Yeah.
The next superstar.
Yeah, we have been. I was actually talking about Roy Hodgson to Chris Hamill yesterday. Just
Something, Roy?
no, who doesn't love Roy? Who doesn't love Roy?
Happy Hodge.
That is a podcast. Right? Yeah. But I mean, under Roy Hodgson at Copenhagen, won their first league title. We were kind of used to Copenhagen being kind of one of the two best teams in Denmark, but they. I think they when Hodgson was there, they won their first league title in like 8 years or something. So has had a very good football education in that sense, and like you're clearly going to learn stuff when you're playing under those kind of managers, Klopp and Tuchel in particular, especially in terms of the way that the Bundesliga has gone over the last 10 years, and then was managing Liefering for a couple of years as well. Obviously, they're the feeder club for Red Bull Salzburg, so that Red Bull philosophy. But actually, I mean, he's not at Mainz. He hasn't been, it's been kind of counter-attacking football. Hasn't necessarily been like super high pressing football. In fact, I think they rank among the least aggressive pressers in the league. But I think this is just a guy who kind of understands, squads. And I think as soon as he came in, it's pretty mad. I mean, first of all, he was coaching Mainz's under-19s before he went to Liefering, so he already had a bit of some kind of coaching experience there. But when he took charge in January 2021, and obviously we're used to Mainz being a bit of a mainstay in the Bundesliga now, but before the Klopp years, they'd never been there. I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. But when he took over in 2021, the writing seemed to be on the wall. I think they'd was it 6 points? I think they'd got from their first 14 games of the season, and this was the Schalke season. So they weren't bottom, but they were only not bottom because Schalke were there, having not won a game in January.
20 games, a win,
something like that. I think Schalke had 4 points by that point. So yeah, I mean, Mainz was in like serious trouble. They'd already sacked 2 managers by the time he came in.
Sounds very Schalke.
Yeah, and he just turned things around instantly. He switched them to a back 3. They went from conceding, I think, over 2 goals a game to around 1.2 goals a game. They were way more effective going forward as well. Just the system just worked instantly. They'd only won one of their first 14 games. I think he ended up. I think he might have only lost, a couple of games by the end of the season. I think only 5 teams actually won more points than them in the second half of the season. So they ended up like 6 points clear of safety. I think he won maybe 2 points less than Leipzig did in that second half of the season. So, turned things around, massively, and has just carried on that trajectory. They finished 8th last year. That was their best finish since 2015-16. So far this season, they're 7th. They're above Wolfsburg, Leverkusen, Gladbach. They've kind of re-established themselves in the top half of the Bully. In much the same way as we saw kind of during Tuchel's time at the club, and he actually has a better win percentage than Tuchel and Klopp managed at Mainz, which is pretty amazing given that Klopp was managing against lesser teams in the second tier for a lot of his time with Mainz. So yeah, and some of you watching this perhaps aren't like super familiar with the Bundesliga, or at least with the clubs outside the top 6 of the Bundesliga. And you may have heard Svensson for the first time when Brighton were looking for a new manager when Graham Potter was going to Chelsea. At one point, I think the reports were suggesting that he was kind of top of their list. Obviously, they made a great choice in the end with De Zerbi, but it's not hard to see why Svensson was considered. He's obviously got a great progressive background in terms of his coaching experience, in terms of who he's learned under, in terms of being part of the Red Bull system, and plays with the back 3, great at kind of effective counter-attacking football, which Brighton have become actually better and better at over the last couple of years. Have really found their feet and so on. And actually, when I was reading about Svensson, it was interesting. Actually, I think when he took over, they were massively underperforming their expected goals, a little bit like what Brighton used to do.
Yes,
and he kind of changed that. So it's not hard to see why he was considered. And this is during a period in which they lost talents like Mateta, like Riddle Baku. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely one of the rising stars of German management. And on that, actually, I would like to give a brief shout out. I don't think anyone suggested him, or at least we maybe passed over him, but Ole Werner at Werder Bremen, who I think actually after Will Still is the youngest manager in Europe. He's actually managing quite an old squad, one of the oldest squads in Germany, and yet has just been fantastic. You know, took over a club in crisis in the second tier last term, led them to promotion. This year, I think they're 11th. Again, like not
by Niklas Füllkrug.
Yeah, Füllkrug, man. He's the man. He's got the best out of Füllkrug at the age of 30 years old or wherever he is. But like, I know I forget that actually. Yeah, when he took over, it was because Marcus Anfang had resigned following allegations that he'd faked a COVID certificate and stuff. So I mean, it was completely, it was chaos there. It was absolute chaos. And yeah, it's been quite a steep rise for him. So yeah, I think Ole Werner is definitely one to take note of. I feel like Svensson and Werner, especially Werner, I think if they don't, I can see them staying in Germany. I feel like they might be the next two to join the merry-go-round. But yeah, they're definitely the two managers I'm keeping on at the moment.
Love it. Thanks, Cubs, for that Bundesliga breakdown of managers, next superstar managers even. Henry, let's quickly talk about someone in Serie A, in Thiago Motta. This guy came in from Retro Shirts FC. Can better get my words out today. Why do you like Thiago Motta?
I'm just really pleased with him because he had a quite tough start to management. I think he was fired, as you know, after about 12 games or so.
They love the firing.
Yeah, famously hard to stick around in the job there. And then he went to Spezia last season, and actually he kept Spezia up. They made 23 signings because they thought they were going to get a transfer ban, so they bought 23 players, which is crazy to kind of have to go and manage that. I think, as I think Steve Cooper's found out this season. But yeah, and he managed to do that. Spezia's always going to be difficult. He left up by mutual consent, and actually, as you know, it got relegated as a result last season. But now he's gone to Bologna. And he joined in really, really difficult circumstances this year because since Mihailovic just been made freedom of the city of Bologna, got fired after 6 games. And if you look at his results, it was like 3 draws, a win and 2 defeats. It wasn't shocking, but it's pretty brutal. And obviously he then sadly passed away a few months later. And there was reports that they would drive the team bus under his hospital window to give him the strength to keep going and stuff like that. So really tough on Thiago Motta to walk into that. What a decorated player. I think we forget how good he was as a footballer. Amazing CV if you look at Inter, won the treble of Inter, etc. Yeah, always. They said he was always destined to be a manager. He'd been kind of laughed at as manager of the Parisian PSG under-19 teams because he came in an interview and he kind of got misquoted, but he basically said he wanted to play a 2-7-2. That was the formation that he wanted to go for. And it was a great quote. He said, "Calcio is not table football." It's basically saying that formations are too rigid, and he believes that everyone should be.
Wasn't he talking about it like someone for the?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, he was. Yeah, it was the other way.
Yes, and the goalie was part of the midfield. He was like the goalie is the first attacker, and the attacker is the first defender. Essentially, like the goalie is involved.
So he was doing it from left to right or right to left rather than from down to top.
So he got horribly misquoted, and the second thing started going wrong in his career. People go, "Wow, look, he's just sounds like crazy maverick." Yeah, he's trying the nutty professor almost. I mean, it's actually he's turned things around at Bologna. After 4 games, it was not going well. There were boos at his teams, and he was like, "Oh dear, here we go again." But yeah, I think since then they've been the 3rd best team in Italy in terms of form. He took them on their 17th. They're now 8th in the division, level on points with Juventus. Obviously, they've had the reduction, but. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to really say how they play. True to his words, all the players have to be tactically flexible. If you look at the heat maps of anyone or the positions that they've been playing this season, Lewis Ferguson, Posch, who's their sweet Austrian right back, they've all played everywhere. They don't just stick in their one position. They've been lining up.
Stefan Posch.
Yeah. They play kind of all over the place. They have to be able to fill in at different points. Nicolas Dominguez as well in the middle of the park. He's their dictator, Argentine international. Leads the side for tackles, progressive passes. He really dictates everything. Once again, the central midfielders are really important to the way these guys like to play. But yeah, he's had to, for a lot of the season, Arnautovic has been injured, so he's been rotating players around to try and get the best out of attack. They barely scored more than 2 goals in a game. It's quite frugal the way that they go about it. I think they've got a negative goal difference. But yeah, he's managed to get a team that looked like they were a shoo-in for relegation in mourning, essentially, this season. He's managed to get a team really buying into his system, playing good football, and I'm really pleased for him because is he maybe the most exciting manager on this list? I don't think so, but he's showing enough credentials to suggest that he could certainly have a good career in Serie A, and I think that's all you can ask for, really.
Nice. Yeah, I remember Dominguez, actually. I remember suggesting him for an extra time podcast for like a lower Premier League team because he has really big defensive output in midfield. And I think I was trying to replicate my Alexis McAllister shout, but he actually hasn't gone anywhere yet. But fair play to Dominguez. Let's quickly talk about a couple of these other ones. Cerveau Brille. My French is a little bit rusty. Was that good? I don't know.
I think it's cool.
He wants us to mention Didier Digard, the former PSG, Middlesbrough and Nice defensive midfielder who is now taking over at Nice, or he's taken over at Nice rather, after Lucien Favre was sacked in January. Bit of a weird time for the club, I feel like. Nice, they had a weird summer, but actually they've recovered quite nicely under him. He's actually unbeaten. They've won 6 of their 9 games. I think they've got a very talented squad, to be honest. But who knows what's going on with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, obviously their owner as well. It feels like there's been a few distractions there. And quickly, we could have talked about Vincent Kompany. If you want more information about Vincent Kompany, go and check out the FD Explain we dropped about 2 months ago now. It's done really well. But let's quickly mention Michael Carrick, because I think he's got far less sort of plaudits than Vincent Kompany. This comes in from Doe Bronx. They are now 3rd in the Championship. He's won 14 of his 20 games since taking charge in October 2022. I watched Middlesbrough against Sunderland at the start of 2023 and actually thought we were in a very good moment at that time. Didn't think they outplayed us. I think it ended 1-1. And yeah, wasn't overwhelmed by them, but he's really picked up since, to be fair. And they're now only 7 points behind second place Sheffield United with 11 games left. And given the sort of momentum that they're building, I wouldn't be surprised if Middlesbrough snuck in there for an automatic return to the Premier League for the first time since, I don't know, 2014.
This is their 6th season, 6th championship.
It's been a long, long time.
We also haven't explained on Carrick, which is worth checking out. They say he's the Arteta of the Championship in the way that he goes like a back 3 from a back 4. And actually, they take more shots inside the 6-yard box than anyone, which I think is the sign of a good team.
He also, I think so he took over United for what, 2 games?
3 games.
3 games. And he was the first guy to bench Ronaldo, I think. So I quite appreciate that from Carrick, especially doing that to a former teammate as well. I think that took, especially because you know you're only in for 3 games. Fair play to him. He saw the light. Guys, that is our suggestions for the next superstar managers in world football. What did you guys think of the list? I'm sure we left many out. Get your suggestions in the comments down below. Let's move on to big match predictions. So last week, we were talking about a lot of games that happened on Friday, starting with Dortmund versus Leipzig. Henry went 3-2 to Dortmund. McCubs went 2-2, that famous score that always comes in. I, for some reason, went 2-1 Leipzig. I didn't really believe it, annoyingly. Anyway, it was 2-1 to Dortmund, so 1 point to Henry there. Napoli versus Lazio. We all backed Napoli, guys. Didn't see that for the Chino strike. What a goal that was, so no points to any of us there. Marseille versus Rennes. McCubs went 1-1. Henry went 2-1 to Rennes. I went 2-1 to Marseille. It was 1-0 to Marseille, so 1 point to me. So not a lot of change, actually, on the basis of last week. We'll be hoping for more this week. Scores on the doors. I'm on 47. Henry's on 36. McCub's on 29. So it can all change. Seriously, there's, 14 games left to play in most leagues? It can change. Henry, don't get confident there. Right, let's move on.
I'm not.
Let's move on to our first game. It's actually really only a big game in name, but it is still a massive game. I mean, Schalke are probably the 3rd biggest club in Germany, to be honest, and they are playing Dortmund this weekend, Saturday, 5:30 p.m. It's 2nd versus 17th. There's 30 points between them. Henry, not a good week for Dortmund in the Champions League, but surely they bounce back here.
Well, yeah, they have to go all in here. I mean, I think people underestimate, they're trying to convince people like Jude Bellingham to stay in their project, and they bowed out the Champions League last 16. He's not interested in just, he wants to be involved in all these kind of big competitions.
Imagine Henry got a full time.
Yeah, I imagine most of the big players do. And so this does matter to Dortmund losing in a position. This was their time to beat Chelsea, in all honesty. They couldn't get it done. Schalke, it's interesting. They have turned it around a little bit. Unbeaten in their last 6 games, winning 2, drawing the other 4. That's good now.
0-0.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought that was an extraordinary
start.
4 consecutive.
Yeah.
That is remarkable. And I think this is almost like a free hit for them. I think they'll be up for it.
Absolutely.
This game. That said, I do think the pressure is on Dortmund. They have to win this. They can't do what Union did and draw against Schalke at this point. Dortmund have to go and chase this Bundesliga title now, because once again, I think Bayern are showing up in the Champions League, not necessarily in the Bundesliga week on week. So yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Dortmund, and sorry, take the boring early scoreline.
No, fair enough. McCall?
Yep. No, I think Schalke might. I think Schalke might get a draw here. I just think they've grinded out so many. Can't say I've watched like every single one of these Schalke games, but well, yeah. I mean, I was speaking to him the other day, and he was very chuffed about Schalke's current form. I mean, and the fact that they beat Stuttgart and Bochum as well, two relegation rivals. Is great. Obviously, they're under former Bochum manager Thomas Reis now.
It's a little bit heated.
Yeah, so and now I think Schalke, Stuttgart, Hoffenheim, and Bochum are all level on points. They're all level on 19. So like that bottom 5 is like them, and then who's just above them? There's someone just above them. They're escaping me, but there's a 5-way. Oh no, Hertha Berlin. That's it. That's Hertha Berlin. There's basically, and then there's like 7 points between Hertha Berlin and maybe it's Augsburg above there. I can't remember. There's a 5-way relegation. Yeah, so there's basically a 5-way relegation battle. I don't think anyone's going to drop in there, but it's a super close relegation battle. So that's going to be really fascinating to see how that pans out. But yeah, I just feel like momentum is with Schalke. Dortmund, such a disappointing defeat to Chelsea. I just think maybe heads might drop a little bit there. I don't know whether Brandt will be back for this game. He's been massively important to that 10-game unbeaten run. So yeah, I kind of feel like this is a bit of a banana skin for Dortmund. They've been caught there. You know, Schalke are playing them at in some ways the perfect time. I know Terzic will be super up for this, but I just think there is scope there for them to be frustrated in this game, and I think Schalke might do it. So I'm going to say 1-1.
Fair enough. I mean, it's so difficult, isn't it? Because in many ways, it's the perfect game for Dortmund to get over it, like a big derby.
Yeah.
But in many ways, if they don't start the game that well, and Schalke, you know, for some reason nick a goal, it could completely fit the mood in the stadium. And yeah, I think they'll get it done, to be honest, because there's so much riding on it, as Henry says, for Dortmund. They can't let this slip. They can't let their season crumble in the space of a month, because they've got the Der Klassikers on the 1st of April. I think they then play Leipzig in the Pokal 3 or 4 days later in the quarterfinals. So it's all gearing up for a massive few weeks for Dortmund, and I think they're going to get back on track here, to be honest. I think they might win this 3-0. Right, let's move on to Napoli versus Atalanta, Saturday 5 p.m. First versus 6th. There's 23 points between them. Macabre's shock defeat for Napoli.
Yeah, shock defeat, but I think they will.
Worried.
I'm not worried. I think, you know, they've had, you know, shock results before. Well, not let's say shock results, but they've had setbacks before this season. They've bounced back pretty nicely. Atalanta not in their best form. I think they've only won 1 in their last 5. Napoli are at home. Yeah, I think this is good. I think I'm gonna go 2-0 FC again. I'm just gonna go 2-0 Napoli.
Yeah. Are you in agreement?
Yeah, I think it was almost good that they lost last week. A bit of a wake up, a bit of a
For 15 points.
yeah, bit of a reality check. That
It's such a privileged position, isn't it? They can just. It's such a weird position for Napoli to be in, where they are champions elect, and it's just like losing 3 points. It's so strange.
they're always too far ahead.
They're like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
For a team that's not won it in ages to be far ahead.
For a club that's had like an underdog mentality for their entire history, it is. Yes.
So yeah, I just think Atalanta's run a bad form recently. I backed them the other week on big match predictions. They really let me down. So yeah,
You're quite bitter, aren't you?
I'm quite bitter about it. So with that in mind, I'm going to go for a 3-0 victory.
Oh, fair enough. I also think, you know, this is a big game, but there's also a massive game for Napoli next week. I think they could put a bit of a statement down in that second leg against Frankfurt. And Napoli've got to be up there with one of the favourites in the Champions League for me, to be honest. I think they are one of the most consistent sides in it. I don't think there are too many sides around Europe, maybe with the exception of Arsenal and Napoli, who are delighted with their season so far. Barcelona, because of their European performance, has dropped off. Man City haven't been at their best in the league or in the Champions League, really. Bayern Munich, same thing. League, not so good. Champions League exception.
In the Champions League.
I think it's really wide open. I would not want to draw Napoli at all, especially because I think the Diego Armando Maradona will be it'll be like a bear pit in the quarterfinals if they are to make it there. Having said that, I saw an interesting stat from James Horncastle, Serie A expert, the other day, which I told Henry yesterday. So I'm interested to get your reaction on this. They're actually 1 point behind Sarri's Napoli. You know, when they got 90 points.
Okay,
at this stage, they're actually 1 point behind. It just shows there's not very much competition at the top of Serie A, as we've been talking about right now. So With that in mind, though, I'm still going for a win. What did you go?
3-0.
2-0.
Yeah. 2-1. 2-1 to Napoli. Right, let's move on to Athletic Club versus Barcelona. Sunday, 8 p.m, 9th versus 1st. There's 25 points between them. I don't want to be accused of, always going last and picking the easy one, so I will kick off. Barcelona, it's a weird period for Barcelona because they've built up this massive league at the top of La Liga, but I follow quite a few big Barcelona accounts on Twitter and listen to a few podcasts, etc. There's not a great feeling around their current state of form at the moment. It's been pretty scrappy in a lot of their games recently. I mean, they beat Valencia 1-0, they beat Real Madrid 1-0, but didn't play particularly well in that. A 1-0 loss to Almeria and a 2-1 loss to Man United in their last 4 games. Lewandowski's form's a bit iffy as well by his exceptional standards at least. But having said that, I think they get the job done against Athletic Club, who themselves have been pretty inconsistent as of late. They're always pretty motivated, particularly at home against the biggest clubs being, I know Basque and Catalonia have a lot in common in terms of independence, but still they want to make a statement on the biggest stage. Ernesto Valverde, Athletic Club manager, formerly of Barcelona, he'll be fully motivated. But I just see Barcelona getting it done, but not particularly convincingly. I might go for another 1-0 here.
Yeah.
Henry?
I'm going to go for a 1-1 just to mix it up a little bit. I don't think that's, as you kind of said, Sam Mems will be in good spirits for this one. Yeah, not been in great form. Two wins in the last 10 games. I actually think what Valverde's trying to do there is good. Like, they rank really well for possession. They're a lot more aggressive than we've seen of Athletic sides in recent years. They've got great talent in that team. I like Oyen Sanse. They're just so hamstrung by their honourable and what great
transfer policy.
Cantero and exactly. But you still like they could just get a few players to book. They could really do something. I know they win, and you've got to admire it for it. But and they lost to Osasuna in the Copa del Rey first leg of the semi-final. Osasuna, by the way, what a season they're having. Slightly concerning times. I think this, like you said, Barcelona could be there for a bit of a taking, maybe take their foot off the gas a little bit. 1-1.
1-1, fair enough. Mikos?
I was going to go for 1-1 as well, actually. Just think I think I will. I just think they're both. I think it's going to be quite a dull game. Both very solid defences. Two of the most solid defences in Europe this season, Athletic Club and Barca. So, yeah, just on that basis, I think Barca haven't been in the best of form recently. I think going out of the Europa has perhaps deflated them a little bit. A bit of a reality check for this side. They're not quite. I feel like Real Madrid just keep on messing up in terms of chasing them down. So the pressure's not quite there enough. And I think being away from home will I think Athletic Club's home advantage will tell essentially.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's a weird one, the La Liga title race. To be honest, it's not gone how I expected it to at all. Let's quickly talk about Liam Wraith 22's quickfire question: who will win the Europa League / Conference League? Well, let's keep this very quick. Henry, Europa League.
Europa League.
I've got the main candidates down there, but
I actually think Juventus need to win it, and I feel like
they really do, don't they?
That might be where their energy goes into it. So it's either United or Juventus for me. But because I don't think United are in the title race. I think they're good enough to stay in the top 4. So I think they'll definitely be there or thereabout. But I'm going to give it to Juventus, even though I don't really want that.
Fair. You backing Ten Hag's tricky Reds and the Cubs?
I would like to. Who knows? This goes out the day after the Betis game, so who knows? I might look very silly. United are definitely up there. I think it's a good point, Henry. Juve need to win it to secure that Champions League money. And Allegri is very experienced in European competition, has a great record in European competition. So I wouldn't be overly surprised actually if they made it really deep. They've got so many experienced tournament players as well. Angel Di Maria, just amazing. Probably one of the best tournament players of the last 10 years. But then we can't discount Arsenal either because
it depends what side they.
It does, but I think like doing well in a cup competition and going deep in a cup competition doesn't necessarily derail you in a title race. In fact, I know it's the Europa League and it's Thursday, Sunday, but I think it can propel you as well. But there's lots of good sides in there as well. Like Roma as well playing tonight against Sociedad. We'll see what the result is there. But obviously Mourinho, won them the Conference League last year. They're in a good moment. I'm sitting on the fence there. I don't know. Man United, why not?
There we have it. He's going for it. I want Leverkusen to win a trophy. Buy Leverkusen. End it. I think they haven't won a trophy since the early 90s. Why not? Go deep in here. And yeah, there are better sides than them, but I do love some of their players in particular. Right, let's talk quickly about the Conference League. The main candidates really, Villarreal, Fiorentina, Nice and West Ham. I think Villarreal won the Europa League a couple of years ago under Emery, know how to get through.
Nice.
You agree?
Yeah.
Nice. Really?
Yeah, why not? I mean,
Didier Digard.
yeah, great. Terra Moffi and their attack, they suddenly look really good. They've got great players, and Digard's got them playing in a good, got them gelling together.
Would you back them against Villarreal over 2 legs?
Why? Over 2, well, yeah, why not? Why not?
Okay.
Setien did oversee the 8-2. Let's remember. I'd really like to see Setien get a trophy though. So I would. I'd like Villarreal to win it more than I think they're definitely going to win it. But yeah.
Fair. Watch out for Fiorentina too. Good win at the weekend against Milan. Very deserved victory there. Guys, that's all we've got time for on Continental Club for this week. I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. If you want deeper breakdowns of what went on in the Champions League this week, go check out Total Football, which dropped on Tuesday night. That was me and Zach. Actually, well, I was about to say a miserable Zach. For once, not miserable this season. He was in a delighted mood. And then on Wednesday, it was myself and Henry breaking down Bayern Munich's quite comfortable in the end victory over PSG. Total Football will be back next week with a combination of different Football Daily presenters, including these two, I believe. Go check out all Football Daily's content across all different mediums and have a great weekend. And we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.